I'm never gonna release these in a timely fashion, am I?
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
Fur, Mother Shadow. Fur gains double experience from combat when her enemy is a higher level than her. A big aspect of Fur's character is her desire to grow stronger to surpass her mother Carla. It's why when you first see her, she and Noah are training in an arena. So for her skill, I wanted to replicate her desire to train and grow stronger. The idea of challenging stronger opponents to get even stronger than you would otherwise is not a foreign concept, so I think the skill is very easily understood and helps patch up Fur's problem. The fact that she shows up like 15 levels lower than Rutger. Sin, Silent Shot. If Sin is attacking an enemy that cannot counter him, he gains 10 critical hit chance. Similar to Wrath in FE7, Sin is a very quiet man who keeps to himself. But unlike Wrath, Sin isn't really antisocial as much as he's just quiet. He doesn't talk much. So I wanted to incorporate his skill in silence into his personal skill. The idea that the enemy will never hear him coming as he strikes them down from afar with arrows. Plus, crit and bows kind of synergize with each other already with the short bow and killer bow, so I think it works out pretty nicely for him. Geese, Way of Water. If Geese is within 5 tiles of water, he gains 15 hit and crit. Geese really loves the ocean. Like, more so than any pirate like Daros or Dart, this man absolutely loves being on a boat and being surrounded by wet. Which, good for him. So I wanted to incorporate his love of water into his skill. Now obviously, Geese is an ocean-faring man, so rivers and lakes technically shouldn't do anything for him, but you're only near the ocean like once or twice, so come on, cut me some slack. Or don't, I can't stop you. Gonzalez, Raw Power. If Gonzalez's base strength is 10 or more higher than his opponent, gain 20 strength during combat. While it would probably be easy to make a skill based on Gonzalez's appearance, I already kind of did that with Gilliam in the FE8 video, which in and of itself is just doing what Benny does in Fire Emblem Fates with his personal skill. So instead, I wanted to make a skill based on the fact that Gonzalez is fucking huge. Bartray and Echidna both note this in their supports, and in the Garrett support, he just straight rips up a tree out of the ground. Like, this man is strong. Lorem, Peppy Step. Lorem gives 4 speed to allies she dances for. Lorem is one of those characters that really just moves to the beat of her own drum. Literally in her profession. So I wanted to go off of the idea that people are energized just by her energy alone. Skills for dancers are kind of always just the same thing. When they dance, special things happen. But, dancers only dance. It's kind of hard to give them a skill that doesn't have to do with dancing. Elfin, Princely Presence. If Elfin is deployed, all allies automatically gain 5 hit and avoid for the chapter. So anyway, here's a dancer skill that has nothing to do with dancing. He's a bard, but you get what I mean. Elfin's skill here has very little to do with the act of him actually refreshing units. Elfin, being a prince and a strategist, is very wise, calm, and composed. So the idea is that while he's on the field, his authority is felt by the units around him, and they fight better under his guidance. Yes, I just ripped this off from Thracia and its authority stars. No, I don't feel bad. Echidna, Hero of the West. Echidna gains 4 con in combat while she's equipped with an axe. Okay, I'll admit, this one is a purely gameplay-related skill that has little to do with Echidna's actual character. Since she has apparently noodle arms, axes weigh her down a lot. It's not that Echidna doesn't have a well-defined character, but she's trying to rebuild the Western Isles, and she can be a bit sassy and snarky. She doesn't have, a main gimmick that can be turned into a skill. She's just kind of a good character. Which, normally, I would take 100 times. but when you're trying to give them skills, those kind of characters are kind of rough. Bartray, brave and bold. All attacks from and against Bartray are guaranteed to hit. Alright, so before you ask, yes, this is the same exact skill that I gave him in the FE7 video, and yes, this is still a skill that I just ripped off from Pokemon, but Machamp is cool as fuck, so I don't mind. The skill not only fits his rather reckless nature, but in a support with Gonzalez, he literally says the best defense is to just kill your opponent before they hit you. So this skill, combined with the Brave Axe that Bartray comes in with, makes him definitely scary. And not to mention his high HP means he can take a few of the hits that are guaranteed to hit him, too. Klein, Archer General. When Klein kills an enemy, allies within 3 spaces of him gain 15 hit. Similar to Echidna, Klein was a character that's just well established but doesn't have a gimmick that makes him jump out. He's a well-intentioned man who's a competent military general for the men under his charge. So I decided to veer into that for his skill. The idea that he leads the charge, strikes down the enemies, and the morale of those under him becomes stronger for it. It's not perfect, but hey. I got no follow-up to that, so we're just gonna move on. Thea, over-prepared. If Thea is the first unit to move during the player's turn, she gains +1 to all non-move stats. Thea, being the middle child of the FE Pegasus sisters, is a fuss budget. She's always worried about everyone and everything, and she herself is always ready and prepared. So I decided to incorporate that into her skill. Being the first to move is kind of her way of going about and being on top of things. She knows what she's doing, she's competent, and so she gets stronger for it, rather than acting towards the end of the turn when you're panicking because Dick missed a 70% hit rate and now Saul is going to die. Ray, Grumpy Kid. If there are no allies within 3 spaces of Ray, he gains +2 magic. Ray's kind of a little shit. Like, he's just an absolute gremlin. Kind of a dick, and makes you wish that corporal punishment was still legal. But you know what? He's completely okay with that, and doesn't mind being an asshole. So for his personal skill, not only did I design it to counteract Lou's personal skill, it's also just, he's a lone wolf. He likes being by himself and using the power of the dark arts. And so he's stronger when it's just him, his enemy, and this giant ball of darkness he's concocted between them. Kath, Master Thief. Kath has a 50% chance for purchases from shops to be free. Kath is all about bringing down the wealthy and making sure that her own pockets are lined with their treasures. So why would she ever pay for things legally when she could steal them for absolutely free? Money isn't too hard to come by in FE6, but that doesn't mean getting free shit can't be helpful. Like, imagine if you took her to the secret shop. The skill doesn't have to activate that much for you to get a fuck ton of boots, so you can give them to, like, I don't know, boars or something. Melody, Convicted Rider. Melody gains 2 strength if she moves at least 5 spaces on her turn. Melody is one of those characters that was difficult to make a personal skill for, because she doesn't really have a gimmick. She's a woman that betrayed her home country, but did so out of her loyalty to Guinevere, which is great, you know, good for her, but doesn't really leave much for a skill. So the idea I came up with after many and many minutes of thinking was that she charges forward, and the farther she charges forward, the stronger it reflects her convictions. I'll admit, I completely phoned this one in. I'm sure one of you have a better idea, and I'd love to hear it. Or keep it to yourself. Again, common theme here, I can't stop you. Sophia, Visions. Once per battle, if Sophia were to take fatal damage, she will dodge the attack regardless of the hit rate. Sophia, thanks to her dragon blood, has the power to see the future. So, I decided for her skill, I would reflect that premonition and have her be able to do something about it in the heat of battle. Sophia is very frail, so a once per battle guaranteed proc of Miracle is a pretty good skill for her. It doesn't fix all the other problems she has, but I am not a miracle worker. Cecilia, beloved mentor. Roy and Lelina gain 2 strength, speed, and skill if Cecilia is within 3 spaces of them. Cecilia is very well respected by Roy and Lelina. As their teacher, she was someone that they both look up to and idolize a great deal. So what I was going to go for was that respect for her translates into them fighting better with her instruction. Granted, Roy and Lelina aren't that great of units, but this can help them a little bit if the player chooses to use them. And since you kinda have to use Roy, at least it's something for him. Igren, the Guardian. Igren gains 3 crit for every wounded ally within 3 spaces of her. Igren's job is to protect the dragons of the Nabata Desert. It is a very big responsibility, and it is a big part of her character, just like it was to her father Hawkeye in FE7. So I decided to make her skill about protecting. The more allies, the more panicked the situation is, the more Igren's duty shines forward, and thus she gets stronger when she has someone to protect. A fairly simple skill, but with a killer bow and enough people almost dying, this can get pretty fucking nutty pretty fast. I like it. Percival, Knight General. Percival grants mounted units +2 defense and resistance if he is within 3 spaces of them. Percival is one of those characters that really is just a knight. What's his backstory? Knight. What's his personality? Knight. I don't mean this in a bad way, mind you. Percival is just a fine character, but it doesn't really leave much for a character-based skill. So I decided to have his competence as a general come into play here. As leader of a cavalry unit, he makes cavaliers better. There's a shit ton of cavaliers in FE6, so this skill can get a lot of use. Percival's combat never needed any help, so just something else to give him a little bit of a boost is all he needs. Garrett, a new leaf. Garrett gains 20 crit if he attacks an enemy an ally already attacked this turn. Garrett's supports are often about him trying to find a new life instead of being a bandit, talking to people about their professions and trying to just change his life for the better. That would work great in a game with reclassing, I could maybe do something with that, but FE6 doesn't have it. So I opted instead to have his skill built around the fact that he's helping other people now. He's no longer pillaging, he's genuinely fighting for a good cause, and the new leaf he's turning is about helping allies rather than himself. So that's the idea I'm going for. Faye, Divine Defense. Faye takes half damage from attacks she can't counter. Faye is a hyperactive child. She always wants to play, she's always going from place to place without ever slowing down. This kid is a bundle of energy. But the point of her character is underneath that energy is great power, which is what I wanted to reference with this skill. Faye is locked to a 1-range weapon for the entire game. So I decided to make her a little bit more powerful if she's ever attacked from 2 range or from siege tomes, to kind of give credence to the all-powerful divine dragon inside of her. The Great Chicken Dragon will be even more powerful. Hugh, Penny Pincher. At the start of every chapter, Hugh can be paid 1, 3, or 5,000 gold to increase all of his non-move stats by 1, 2, or 3, respectively. Alright, I know that's a lot, but hear me out here. One of Hugh's main character traits, in addition to the fact that he's kind of fucking stupid, is that he's really bad with money. I mean, really bad with money. So the idea here is that you keep giving him an incentive to do better, and then by the time the next chapter starts, he's somehow lost the money and needs it again. Hugh as a unit is always kind of mediocre, so he can use any stat buff he can get. So 3 to all of his stats if he got 5,000 gold actually would help him a lot and wouldn't even make him that broken. Zees, Fighting Doubts. For every consecutive battle Zees is deployed, he gains 1 strength. This bonus is lost if he is ever not deployed, and caps at 5. Zees is in a similar position to his sister Melody. He's betraying Burn for his own principles, but unlike Melody, he is not as sure in himself that he's doing the right thing. A few of his supports have him expressing his doubts. So for his skill, the idea I'm going for is the longer that Zees is fighting, the greater his conviction grows and more confident he feels that he made the right decision. Zees really doesn't need too much help to get going, so a little bit extra is all I thought to give him. Douglas, Shield of Iteria. If Douglas is fighting an enemy that can counter him, he gains 5 defense and resistance. Douglas is a proud, stubborn knight. He is very much all about his country and all about what he can do for it. And as a big-ass armor knight, what he can do for it is to stand in the middle of enemies and just never die. So for his skill, I wanted to implement the idea that his bulk is his selling point. He is known as the Shield of Iteria, so his defensive prowess is unmatched, but it still leaves him vulnerable to ranged mages like before. It doesn't help him do anything new, just does what he already does even better. Nimei, Hermit's Knowledge. Nimei gains 7 magic in combat. This skill is very simple to understand and is very simple in execution. Nimei is known throughout the entire world as the Dark Magic Woman. Her power is known all across the land by every mage worth their salt. So, for her skill, it reflects her power with dark magic. Now, this doesn't really interfere with what she's mostly used for by efficient players, her staff usage, since the skill only works in combat. It just lets her use Nosferatu tanking or just more damage in general to support a role that she doesn't use as much as her staff rank. Juno, Flight Commander. If Juno initiates the triangle attack, she gains 7 strength. Juno was a powerful flight commander when she was in service. Her sisters and Zealot attest to this. But in gameplay, she kinda struggles to do much damage and is mostly just there for flyer utility. So for her skill, I wanted to take into account her competency leading a unit. So if she is leading the charge for the triangle attack, it becomes more powerful than if Tate or Shauna were doing so, and just shows how she is the big sister that leads the rest. Diane, Master of the Plains. Diane gains 2 movement on outdoor maps. Diane is the well-respected chief of the Koltoa. He isn't just some dude, he is the dude, and his skill on horseback is known throughout the entire country and is respected by the likes of Sin and Sue. So for his skill, I wanted to show that he is the best horseback rider in the entire game, being able to traverse much better than anyone else. And it sounds really busted to just give him 2 moves, but there are only about 3 or 4 outdoors maps left in the game by the time you get him, so it really isn't that crazy of a skill to have. Yodel, Elmin's Protection. Allies adjacent to Yodel cannot be targeted by staves or siege tomes. If you were to look up priest in the dictionary, odds are you'd find Yodel's picture. He's faithful, he's kind-hearted and wise, and he helps teach others around him to be better people. So for his skill, I decided that his hotline to God should be more powerful, and if anyone is near him, they get protected from threats beyond their comprehension. Yodel himself doesn't get protected, but since he has such high resistance, that doesn't really matter much anyway. Just a good old man giving his love and blessing to those around him. Carol, Sword Saint. Allies adjacent to Carol gain 15 crit avoid. By the times of FE6, Carol is a very calm and serene man. He takes a very passive role in helping other people. He never directly teaches, but rather nudges them in the right direction to solve their own problems. So in his skill, I wanted to have him be passive. Carol doesn't actively do anything, but but by simply being around him and fighting alongside him, people are wiser and more powerful for it. Another nod to his epilogue as well. A simple skill for a unit that doesn't really need help in the combat department. And that does it! We have officially completed all 3 Game Boy Advance games and given the characters their personal skills! Woo! If you enjoyed this video, consider looking at my character analysis videos. There are several from FE6 that I've done already, and they're kind of the bread and butter of this channel, and I think they're pretty damn amazing. I will see you guys in about 6 months when the Tellius episode happens. If it happens. I'm thinking I might make it 8 months.